Welcome back to Drowsy Tales Daily. Tonight I have 33 incredible stories from Reddit about education industry frauds and academic deceptions where dishonest schools, tutoring services, and educational companies deliberately betrayed student trust through credential fraud, billing scams, grade manipulation, and program deceptions that turned essential learning opportunities into costly nightmares and violated educational standards. Our first story comes from parents who discovered their private school was charging for advanced programs while providing basic curriculum instruction, billing for accelerated learning and gifted education while delivering standard coursework and elementary instruction despite academic agreements and program procedures that guaranteed advanced curriculum and accelerated learning according to private education standards and academic excellence requirements. The advanced program operation involved targeted curriculum fraud and academic manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational services to avoid immediate detection by academic oversight and curriculum monitoring that relied on honest program delivery and advanced instruction for student protection and educational integrity. The school had been particularly focused on billing for expensive, gifted programs and accelerated coursework while ensuring that curriculum fraud would be concealed through false academic documentation and manipulated program records that would justify advanced billing despite actual instruction level that provided only basic education according to educational fraud concealment and student academic deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false curriculum records and program documentation while coordinating basic instruction with advanced billing protocols to maximize tuition revenue, while concealing actual instruction quality and academic level that would affect student learning and educational value based on honest educational practices and advanced curriculum delivery. The school had also been manipulating academic procedures and curriculum verification processes to maintain program fraud while avoiding educational oversight and academic monitoring that would reveal curriculum manipulation and program violations that violated student protection and educational integrity standards. The advanced program fraud was discovered when parents investigated curriculum content and discovered instruction level discrepancies, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and academic manipulation that violated private education regulations and curriculum standards. Our second story comes from students who discovered their tutoring company was billing for certified teachers while using unqualified college students, charging for professional instruction and qualified educators while providing tutoring from undergraduate students without teaching credentials despite tutoring agreements and qualification procedures that guaranteed certified instruction and professional teaching according to tutoring service standards and educational qualification requirements. The unqualified instructor operation involved targeted credential fraud and qualification manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate tutoring services to avoid immediate detection by tutoring oversight and credential monitoring that relied on honest instructor qualification and certified teaching for student protection and tutoring service integrity. The company had been particularly focused on billing for expensive certified teacher rates and professional instruction while ensuring that qualification fraud would be concealed through false credential documentation and manipulated instructor records that would justify professional billing despite actual instructor qualifications that lacked teaching certification according to tutoring fraud concealment and student instruction deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false certification records and qualification documentation while coordinating unqualified instructors with professional billing protocols to maximize tutoring revenue while concealing actual instructor credentials and teaching qualifications that would affect student learning and instruction quality based on honest tutoring practices and certified instructor delivery. The company had also been manipulating tutoring procedures and credential verification processes to maintain qualification fraud while avoiding tutoring oversight and credential monitoring that would reveal instructor manipulation and qualification violations that violated student protection and tutoring service integrity standards. The unqualified instructor fraud was discovered when students investigated teacher credentials and discovered certification absence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive tutoring fraud and credential manipulation that violated tutoring service regulations and educational qualification standards. Our third story comes from degree seekers who discovered their online university was selling fake degrees with no actual coursework or education requirements, issuing diplomas and academic credentials while requiring no class attendance or academic work despite degree agreements and accreditation procedures that guarantee legitimate education and academic achievement according to higher education standards and degree accreditation requirements. The fake degree operation involved targeted credential fraud and academic manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate university appearance to avoid immediate detection by accreditation oversight and academic monitoring that relied on honest degree requirements and legitimate education for student protection and higher education integrity. The university had been particularly focused on selling expensive professional degrees and graduate credentials while ensuring that degree fraud would be concealed through false accreditation documentation and manipulated academic records that would justify degree issuance despite actual education requirements that violated academic standards according to educational fraud concealment and student credential deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false accreditation records and academic documentation while coordinating degree sales with credential issuance protocols to maximize degree revenue while concealing actual education requirements and academic standards that would affect student credentials and professional qualifications based on honest educational practices and legitimate degree delivery. The university had also been manipulating academic procedures and accreditation verification processes to maintain degree fraud while avoiding accreditation oversight and academic monitoring that would reveal credential manipulation and degree violations that violated student protection and higher education integrity standards. The fake degree fraud was discovered when employers investigated degree validity and discovered accreditation absence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and credential manipulation that violated higher education regulations and degree accreditation standards. Our fourth story comes from parents who discovered their private academy was charging for small class sizes while overcrowding classrooms beyond capacity, billing for intimate learning environments and individualized attention while maintaining class sizes that exceeded educational standards and prevented effective instruction despite enrollment agreements and class size procedures that guaranteed small student-teacher ratios and personalized attention according to private school standards and educational quality requirements. The classroom overcrowding operation involved targeted enrollment fraud and capacity manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational services to avoid immediate detection by enrollment oversight and capacity monitoring that relied on honest class size maintenance and student-teacher ratios for student protection and educational quality integrity. The academy had been particularly focused on advertising small class advantages and personalized instruction while ensuring that overcrowding fraud would be concealed through false enrollment documentation and manipulated capacity records that would justify small class billing despite actual classroom conditions that violated enrollment agreements according to educational fraud concealment and student learning environment deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false class size records and enrollment documentation while coordinating overcrowding with small class billing protocols to maximize enrollment revenue while concealing actual classroom capacity and student-teacher ratios that would affect student learning and educational quality based on honest educational practices and appropriate class size delivery. The academy had also been manipulating enrollment procedures and capacity verification processes to maintain overcrowding fraud while avoiding enrollment oversight and capacity monitoring that would reveal class size manipulation and enrollment violations that violated student protection and educational quality integrity standards. The classroom overcrowding fraud was discovered when parents investigated actual class sizes and discovered capacity violation evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and enrollment manipulation that violated private school regulations and class size standards. Our fifth story comes from students who discovered their educational testing service was manipulated. The service had been particularly focused on inflating standardized test scores and achievement metrics while ensuring that manipulation fraud would be concealed through false scoring documentation and manipulated assessment records that would justify achievement claims despite actual student performance that contradicted reported scores according to testing fraud concealment and student achievement deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false score verification records and assessment documentation while coordinating score manipulation with achievement reporting protocols to maintain institutional reputation while concealing actual student performance, and achievement levels that would affect school evaluation and funding based on honest testing practices and accurate score reporting. The service had also been manipulating testing procedures and score verification processes to maintain manipulation fraud while avoiding testing oversight and assessment monitoring that would reveal score manipulation and testing violations that violated student protection and educational testing integrity standards. The score manipulation fraud was discovered when educators investigated test validity and discovered scoring discrepancies evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive testing fraud and assessment manipulation that violated educational testing regulations and academic assessment standards. Our sixth story comes from students who discovered their tutoring center was billing for individualized instruction while using standardized group sessions, charging for personalized tutoring and one-on-one instruction while providing group classes and standardized lesson plans despite tutoring agreements and instruction procedures that guaranteed individualized learning and personalized instruction according to tutoring service standards and educational personalization requirements. The group session operation involved targeted instruction fraud and personalization manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate tutoring services to avoid immediate detection by tutoring oversight and instruction monitoring that relied on honest, individualized instruction and personalized learning for student protection and tutoring service integrity. The center had been particularly focused on billing for expensive individualized tutoring and personal instruction while ensuring that instruction fraud would be concealed through false session documentation and manipulated tutoring records that would justify individualized billing despite actual instruction format that provided only group sessions according to tutoring fraud concealment and student instruction deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false individualized session records and instruction documentation while coordinating group sessions with individualized billing protocols to maximize tutoring efficiency while concealing actual instruction format and personalization level that would affect student learning and tutoring effectiveness based on honest tutoring practices and individualized instruction delivery. The center had also been manipulating tutoring procedures and instruction verification processes to maintain session fraud while avoiding tutoring oversight and instruction monitoring that would reveal instruction manipulation and tutoring violations that violated student protection and tutoring service integrity standards. The group session fraud was discovered when students investigated instruction format and discovered standardized group evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive tutoring fraud and instruction manipulation that violated tutoring service regulations and educational personalization standards. Standards. Our seventh story comes from high school students who discovered their private school was charging for college preparation while providing inadequate counseling services, billing for comprehensive college guidance and application assistance while offering minimal counseling and outdated preparation despite college prep agreements and counseling procedures that guaranteed college readiness and application support according to college preparation standards and academic counseling requirements. The inadequate counseling operation involved targeted preparation fraud and guidance manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational services to avoid immediate detection by counseling oversight and preparation monitoring that relied on honest college guidance and comprehensive preparation for student protection and college preparation integrity. The school had been particularly focused on billing for expensive college preparation programs and counseling services while ensuring that preparation fraud would be concealed through false counseling documentation and manipulated guidance records that would justify preparation billing despite actual counseling quality that provided inadequate college support according to educational fraud concealment and student preparation deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false counseling session records and preparation documentation while coordinating inadequate services with college prep billing protocols to minimize counseling costs while concealing actual guidance quality and preparation effectiveness that would affect student college readiness and application success based on honest educational practices and comprehensive college preparation delivery. The school had also been manipulating counseling procedures and preparation verification processes to maintain guidance fraud while avoiding counseling oversight and preparation monitoring that would reveal counseling manipulation and preparation violations that violated student protection and college preparation integrity standards. The inadequate counseling fraud was discovered when students investigated college acceptance rates and discovered preparation deficiency evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and counseling manipulation that violated college preparation regulations and academic counseling standards. Our eighth story comes from students who discovered their educational company was selling plagiarized study materials as original curriculum content, distributing copyrighted educational materials and stolen content while presenting them as proprietary curriculum despite intellectual property laws and content creation procedures that required original material development and copyright compliance according to educational publishing standards and intellectual property requirements. The plagiarized content operation involved targeted copyright fraud and material manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational publishing to avoid immediate detection by copyright oversight and content monitoring that relied on honest material creation and intellectual property compliance for customer protection and educational publishing integrity. The company had been particularly focused on selling expensive curriculum packages and study materials while ensuring that plagiarism fraud would be concealed through false creation documentation and manipulated content records that would justify original material claims despite actual content sources that violated copyright laws according to educational fraud concealment and intellectual property violation techniques. The scheme extended to creating false content creation records and copyright documentation while coordinating plagiarized materials with original content billing protocols to minimize development costs, while concealing actual content sources and intellectual property violations that would affect material legitimacy and legal compliance based on honest publishing practices and original content creation. The company had also been manipulating content procedures and copyright verification processes to maintain plagiarism fraud while avoiding copyright oversight and content monitoring that would reveal material manipulation and intellectual property violations that violated customer protection and educational publishing integrity standards. The plagiarized content fraud was discovered when educators investigated material sources and discovered copyright violation evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive publishing fraud and intellectual property manipulation that violated educational publishing regulations and copyright standards. Our ninth story comes from students who discovered their tutoring service was billing for progress monitoring while providing no assessment or tracking, charging for student evaluation and progress measurement while offering no actual monitoring or assessment documentation despite tutoring agreements and monitoring procedures that guaranteed progress tracking and student evaluation according to tutoring service standards and educational assessment requirements. The missing monitoring operation involved targeted assessment fraud and tracking manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate tutoring instruction to avoid immediate detection by tutoring oversight and assessment monitoring that relied on honest progress tracking and student evaluation for customer protection and tutoring service integrity. The service had been particularly focused on billing for comprehensive progress monitoring and detailed assessment while ensuring that monitoring fraud would be concealed through false tracking documentation and manipulated assessment records that would justify monitoring billing despite actual assessment absence that violated tutoring agreements according to tutoring fraud concealment and student progress deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false progress records and monitoring documentation while coordinating assessment absence with monitoring billing protocols to minimize evaluation work while concealing actual tracking provision and progress measurement that would affect student learning goals and tutoring effectiveness based on honest tutoring practices and comprehensive monitoring delivery. The service had also been manipulating tutoring procedures and monitoring verification processes to maintain assessment fraud while avoiding tutoring oversight and monitoring verification that would reveal tracking manipulation and assessment violations that violated student protection and tutoring service integrity standards. The missing monitoring fraud was discovered when parents investigated progress documentation and discovered tracking absence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive tutoring fraud and assessment manipulation that violated tutoring service regulations and educational monitoring standards. Our 10th story comes from students who discovered their private academy was charging for specialized learning support while offering no disability services, billing for learning difference accommodation and special needs support while providing no actual assistance or specialized instruction despite disability rights laws and accommodation procedures that guaranteed learning support and special needs services according to special education standards and disability accommodation requirements. The missing support operation involved targeted accommodation fraud and disability manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational services to avoid immediate detection by disability oversight and accommodation monitoring that relied on honest learning support and special needs assistance for student protection and educational accommodation integrity. The Academy had been particularly focused on billing for expensive learning support programs and disability services while ensuring that accommodation fraud would be concealed through false support documentation and manipulated service records that would justify accommodation billing despite actual service absence that violated disability laws according to educational fraud concealment and student accommodation deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false accommodation records and support documentation while coordinating service absence with disability billing protocols to avoid accommodation costs while concealing actual support provision and learning assistance that would affect student educational access and academic success based on honest educational practices and disability accommodation delivery. The Academy had also been manipulating accommodation procedures and disability verification processes to maintain support fraud while avoiding disability oversight and accommodation monitoring that would reveal support manipulation and disability violations that violated student protection and educational accommodation integrity standards. The missing support fraud was discovered when families investigated accommodation services and discovered assistance absence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and disability manipulation that violated special education regulations and accommodation standards. Our 11th story comes from college applicants who discovered their educational consultant was charging for scholarship assistance while providing outdated information, billing for financial aid guidance and scholarship search services while using expired scholarship databases and obsolete funding information despite consulting agreements and assistance procedures that guaranteed current scholarship information and effective funding guidance according to educational consulting standards and financial aid assistance requirements. The outdated information operation involved targeted assistance fraud and information manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate consulting services to avoid immediate detection by consulting oversight and information monitoring that relied on honest scholarship guidance and current financial aid information for student protection and educational consulting integrity. The consultant had been particularly focused on billing for expensive scholarship search services and financial aid assistance while ensuring that information fraud would be concealed through false database documentation and manipulated scholarship records that would justify assistance billing despite actual information currency that violated consulting agreements according to consulting fraud concealment and student funding deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false scholarship database records and assistance documentation while coordinating outdated information with consulting billing protocols to minimize research costs while concealing actual information currency and assistance effectiveness that would affect student funding opportunities and college affordability based on honest consulting practices and current information delivery. The consultant had also been manipulating consulting procedures and information verification processes to maintain assistance fraud while avoiding consulting oversight and information monitoring that would reveal information manipulation and assistance violations that violated student protection and educational consulting integrity standards. The outdated information fraud was discovered when students investigated scholarship availability and discovered information obsolescence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive consulting fraud and information manipulation that violated educational consulting regulations and financial aid assistance standards. Our 12th story comes from students who discovered their tutoring company was billing for subject specialists while using generalist instructors for all subjects, charging for expert instruction and specialized knowledge while providing tutoring from general instructors without subject expertise despite tutoring agreements and specialization procedures that guaranteed expert instruction and subject-specific knowledge, according to tutoring service standards and educational specialization requirements. The generalist instructor operation involved targeted specialization fraud and expertise manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate tutoring services to avoid immediate detection by tutoring oversight and specialization monitoring that relied on honest expert instruction and subject-specific knowledge for student protection and tutoring service integrity. The company had been particularly focused on billing for expensive subject specialist rates and expert instruction while ensuring that specialization fraud would be concealed through false expertise documentation and manipulated instructor records that would justify specialist billing despite actual instructor qualifications that lacked subject expertise, according to tutoring fraud concealment and student instruction deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false specialization records and expertise documentation while coordinating generalist instructors with specialist billing protocols to maximize instructor efficiency while concealing actual instructor qualifications and subject expertise that would affect student learning and instruction quality based on honest tutoring practices and specialized instruction delivery. The company had also been manipulating tutoring procedures and specialization verification processes to maintain expertise fraud while avoiding tutoring oversight and specialization monitoring that would reveal instructor manipulation and expertise violations that violated student protection and tutoring service integrity standards. The generalist instructor fraud was discovered when students investigated instructor qualifications and discovered specialization absence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive tutoring fraud and expertise manipulation that violated tutoring service regulations and educational specialization standards. Our 13th story comes from students who discovered their private school was charging for technology integration while using outdated equipment and software, billing for modern educational technology and digital learning tools while operating computers and programs that were obsolete and ineffective despite technology agreements and integration procedures that guaranteed current technology and effective digital tools according to educational technology standards and digital learning requirements. The outdated technology operation involved targeted integration fraud and equipment manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational services to avoid immediate detection by technology oversight and integration monitoring that relied on honest technology provision and current digital tools for student protection and educational technology integrity. The school had been particularly focused on billing for expensive technology programs and digital integration while ensuring that technology fraud would be concealed through false equipment documentation and manipulated technology records that would justify integration billing despite actual equipment condition that provided obsolete technology according to educational fraud concealment and student technology deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false technology inventory records and integration documentation while coordinating outdated equipment with technology billing protocols to minimize technology costs while concealing actual equipment currency and digital effectiveness that would affect student learning and technology education based on honest educational practices and current technology delivery. The school had also been manipulating technology procedures and integration verification processes to maintain equipment fraud while avoiding technology oversight and integration monitoring that would reveal technology manipulation and equipment violations that violated student protection and educational technology integrity standards. The outdated technology fraud was discovered when students investigated equipment functionality and discovered technology obsolescence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and technology manipulation that violated educational technology regulations and digital learning standards. Our 14th story comes from students who discovered their educational service was billing for career counseling while providing generic job search advice, charging for professional career guidance and employment counseling while offering basic job hunting tips and generalized advice despite counseling agreements and career services procedures that guaranteed professional guidance and personalized career counseling, according to career counseling standards and employment guidance requirements. The generic advice operation involved targeted counseling fraud and guidance manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational services to avoid immediate detection by counseling oversight and career monitoring that relied on honest career guidance and professional counseling for student protection and career counseling integrity. The service had been particularly focused on billing for expensive career counseling sessions and professional guidance while ensuring that counseling fraud would be concealed through false guidance documentation and manipulated counseling records that would justify professional billing despite actual advice quality that provided only generic information according to educational fraud concealment and student career deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false counseling session records and guidance documentation while coordinating generic advice with professional billing protocols to minimize counseling preparation while concealing actual guidance quality and career effectiveness that would affect student employment preparation and career development based on honest counseling practices and professional guidance delivery. The service had also been manipulating counseling procedures and guidance verification processes to maintain advice fraud while avoiding counseling oversight and career monitoring that would reveal guidance manipulation and counseling violations that violated student protection and career counseling integrity standards. The generic advice fraud was discovered when students investigated counseling effectiveness and discovered advice generalization evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and counseling manipulation that violated career counseling regulations and employment guidance standards. Our 15th story comes from students who discovered their tutoring center was charging for test preparation while using ineffective study methods, billing for exam preparation and test improvement services while providing study techniques that failed to improve test performance despite preparation agreements and testing procedures that guaranteed effective preparation and score improvement according to test preparation standards and academic assessment requirements. The ineffective preparation operation involved targeted preparation fraud and method manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate tutoring services to avoid immediate detection by preparation oversight and testing monitoring that relied on honest preparation methods and effective study techniques for student protection and test preparation integrity. The center had been particularly focused on billing for expensive test preparation programs and score improvement services while ensuring that preparation fraud would be concealed through false method documentation and manipulated preparation records that would justify preparation billing despite actual study methods that failed to improve performance according to tutoring fraud concealment and student preparation deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false preparation effectiveness records and method documentation while coordinating ineffective techniques with preparation billing protocols to minimize preparation development while concealing actual method effectiveness and score improvement that would affect student test performance and academic achievement based on honest preparation practices and effective method delivery. The center had also been manipulating preparation procedures and method verification processes to maintain technique fraud while avoiding preparation oversight and testing monitoring that would reveal method manipulation and preparation violations that violated student protection and test preparation integrity standards. The ineffective preparation fraud was discovered when students investigated score improvement and discovered method ineffectiveness evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive tutoring fraud and preparation manipulation that violated test preparation regulations and academic assessment standards. Our 16th story comes from students who discovered their private academy was billing for extracurricular programs while offering minimal activity options, charging for comprehensive extracurricular activities and diverse program offerings while providing limited activities and restricted program access despite activity agreements and program procedures that guaranteed diverse extracurricular options and comprehensive activity programs according to extracurricular standards and student development requirements. The minimal activity operation involved targeted program fraud and activity manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational services to avoid immediate detection by program oversight and activity monitoring that relied on honest program delivery and diverse activity options for student protection and extracurricular integrity. The Academy had been particularly focused on billing for expensive extracurricular programs and comprehensive activities while ensuring that program fraud would be concealed through false activity documentation and manipulated program records that would justify program billing despite actual activity availability that provided minimal options according to educational fraud concealment and student activity deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false program records and activity documentation while coordinating minimal activities with program billing protocols to minimize program costs while concealing actual activity availability and program diversity that would affect student development and extracurricular participation based on honest educational practices and comprehensive program delivery. The Academy had also been manipulating program procedures and activity verification processes to maintain program fraud, while avoiding program oversight and activity monitoring that would reveal activity manipulation and program violations that violated student protection and extracurricular integrity standards. The minimal activity fraud was discovered when students investigated program availability and discovered activity limitation evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and program manipulation that violated extracurricular regulations and student development standards. Our 17th story comes from course seekers who discovered their educational company was charging for accredited courses while operating without proper certification, billing for officially recognized education and transferable credits, while lacking accreditation and institutional approval despite course agreements and accreditation procedures that guaranteed recognized education and credit transferability according to educational accreditation standards and academic recognition requirements. The unaccredited operation involved targeted accreditation fraud and certification manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational appearance to avoid immediate detection by accreditation oversight and certification monitoring that relied on honest accreditation status and proper certification for student protection and educational accreditation integrity. The company had been particularly focused on selling expensive accredited courses and transferable credits while ensuring that accreditation fraud would be concealed through false certification documentation and manipulated accreditation records that would justify course recognition despite actual accreditation status that lacked proper certification according to educational fraud concealment and student credit deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false accreditation records and certification documentation while coordinating unaccredited courses with recognition billing protocols to avoid accreditation costs, while concealing actual certification status and credit transferability that would affect student academic progress and degree completion based on honest educational practices and proper accreditation delivery. The company had also been manipulating course procedures and accreditation verification processes to maintain certification fraud while avoiding accreditation oversight and certification monitoring that would reveal accreditation manipulation and certification violations that violated student protection and educational accreditation integrity standards. The unaccredited fraud was discovered when students investigated credit transfer and discovered accreditation absence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and accreditation manipulation that violated educational accreditation regulations and academic recognition standards. Our 18th story comes from students who discovered their tutoring service was billing for homework assistance while providing answers without explanation, charging for educational support and learning assistance while giving assignment solutions without teaching underlying concepts despite tutoring agreements and assistance procedures that guaranteed educational explanation and learning support according to tutoring service standards and educational assistance requirements. The answer-only operation involved targeted assistance fraud and learning manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate tutoring services to avoid immediate detection by tutoring oversight and assistance monitoring that relied on honest educational support and learning explanation for student protection and tutoring service integrity. The service had been particularly focused on billing for homework assistance and educational support while ensuring that assistance fraud would be concealed through false support documentation and manipulated assistance records that would justify educational billing despite actual assistance format that provided only answers according to tutoring fraud concealment and student learning deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false assistance records and support documentation while coordinating answer provision with educational billing protocols to maximize assistance efficiency while concealing actual assistance quality and learning support that would affect student understanding and academic development based on honest tutoring practices and educational assistance delivery. The service had also been manipulating tutoring procedures and assistance verification processes to maintain answer fraud while avoiding tutoring oversight and assistance monitoring that would reveal assistance manipulation and learning violations that violated student protection and tutoring service integrity standards. The answer-only fraud was discovered when teachers investigated student understanding and discovered learning comprehension absence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive tutoring fraud and assistance manipulation that violated tutoring service regulations and educational assistance standards. Our 19th story comes from students who discovered their private school was charging for language immersion while offering basic foreign language classes, billing for comprehensive language immersion and fluency development while providing elementary language instruction and limited exposure despite immersion agreements and language procedures that guaranteed immersive language learning and advanced fluency development according to language education standards and immersion program requirements. The basic language operation involved targeted immersion fraud and program manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational services to avoid immediate detection by language oversight and immersion monitoring that relied on honest immersion, delivery and comprehensive language education for student protection and language program integrity. The school had been particularly focused on billing for expensive immersion programs and fluency development while ensuring that immersion fraud would be concealed through false program documentation and manipulated language records that would justify immersion billing despite actual instruction level that provided only basic language classes according to educational fraud concealment and student language deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false immersion records and program documentation while coordinating basic instruction with immersion billing protocols to minimize program complexity while concealing actual instruction level and language immersion that would affect student fluency development and language learning based on honest educational practices and immersion program delivery. The school had also been manipulating language procedures and immersion verification processes to maintain program fraud while avoiding language oversight and immersion monitoring that would reveal program manipulation and language violations that violated student protection and language program integrity standards. The basic language fraud was discovered when parents investigated language proficiency and discovered immersion absence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and language manipulation that violated language education regulations and immersion program standards. Our 20th story comes from students who discovered their educational testing company was falsifying student progress reports to maintain enrollment numbers, altering assessment results and progress documentation while reporting false improvement data to retain students and funding despite testing agreements and reporting procedures that guaranteed accurate progress reporting and honest assessment results, according to educational testing standards and progress reporting requirements. The falsified report operation involved targeted reporting fraud and progress manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate testing services to avoid immediate detection by testing oversight and reporting monitoring that relied on honest progress, reporting and accurate assessment for student protection and educational testing integrity. The company had been particularly focused on maintaining enrollment numbers and institutional funding while ensuring that reporting fraud would be concealed through false progress documentation and manipulated assessment records that would justify continued enrollment despite actual student progress that contradicted reported improvement according to testing fraud concealment and institutional deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false progress records and assessment documentation while coordinating report falsification with enrollment retention protocols to maintain funding levels while concealing actual student progress and assessment results that would affect institutional evaluation and student advancement based on honest testing practices and accurate progress reporting. The company had also been manipulating testing procedures and progress verification processes to maintain reporting fraud while avoiding testing oversight and progress monitoring that would reveal progress manipulation and reporting violations that violated student protection and educational testing integrity standards. The falsified report fraud was discovered when educators investigated progress validity and discovered assessment manipulation evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive testing fraud and progress manipulation that violated educational testing regulations and progress reporting standards. Our 21st story comes from students who discovered their tutoring center was billing for math specialists while using instructors without mathematics backgrounds, charging for expert mathematics instruction and specialized math knowledge while providing tutoring from instructors lacking mathematical education and expertise despite tutoring agreements and specialization procedures that guaranteed expert mathematics instruction and qualified math specialists according to mathematics tutoring standards and subject expertise requirements. The unqualified math operation involved targeted specialization fraud and expertise manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate tutoring services to avoid immediate detection by tutoring oversight and mathematics monitoring that relied on honest mathematics expertise and qualified instruction for student protection and mathematics tutoring integrity. The center had been particularly focused on billing for expensive mathematics specialist rates and expert instruction while ensuring that expertise fraud would be concealed through false qualification documentation and manipulated instructor records that would justify specialist billing despite actual instructor backgrounds that lacked mathematics expertise, according to tutoring fraud concealment and student mathematics deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false mathematics qualification records and expertise documentation while coordinating unqualified instructors with specialist billing protocols to maximize instructor utilization while concealing actual mathematics qualifications and subject expertise that would affect student mathematics learning and instruction quality based on honest tutoring practices and qualified mathematics instruction delivery. The center had also been manipulating tutoring procedures and mathematics verification processes to maintain expertise fraud while avoiding tutoring oversight and mathematics monitoring that would reveal instructor manipulation and mathematics violations that violated student protection and mathematics tutoring integrity standards. The unqualified math fraud was discovered when students investigated instructor qualifications and discovered mathematics expertise absence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive tutoring fraud and mathematics manipulation that violated mathematics tutoring regulations and subject expertise standards. Our 20-second story comes from students who discovered their private academy was charging for arts programs while providing inadequate supplies and instruction, billing for comprehensive arts education and creative programs while offering limited art supplies and unqualified instruction despite arts agreements and program procedures that guaranteed quality arts education and adequate supplies according to arts education standards and creative program requirements. The inadequate arts operation involved targeted program fraud and instruction manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational services to avoid immediate detection by arts oversight and program monitoring that relied on honest arts instruction and adequate supplies for student protection and arts education integrity. The academy had been particularly focused on billing for expensive arts programs and creative education while ensuring that program fraud would be concealed through false arts documentation and manipulated program records that would justify arts billing despite actual instruction quality that provided inadequate arts education according to educational fraud concealment and student arts deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false arts program records and instruction documentation while coordinating inadequate supplies with arts billing protocols to minimize program costs while concealing actual instruction quality and supply adequacy that would affect student creative development and arts learning based on honest educational practices and quality arts program delivery. The academy had also been manipulating arts procedures and program verification processes to maintain instruction fraud while avoiding arts oversight and program monitoring that would reveal instruction manipulation and arts violations that violated student protection and arts education integrity standards. The inadequate arts fraud was discovered when students investigated program quality and discovered instruction deficiency evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and arts manipulation that violated arts education regulations and creative program standards. Our 23rd story comes from college applicants who discovered their educational consultant was billing for college application assistance while using template essays, charging for personalized application support and custom essay writing, while providing generic essay templates and standardized application materials despite consulting agreements and assistance procedures that guaranteed personalized application support and custom essay development according to college consulting standards and application assistance requirements. The template essay operation involved targeted assistance fraud and personalization manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate consulting services to avoid immediate detection by consulting oversight and application monitoring that relied on honest application assistance and personalized support for student protection and college consulting integrity. The consultant had been particularly focused on billing for expensive application assistance and essay writing services while ensuring that assistance fraud would be concealed through false personalization documentation and manipulated application records that would justify custom billing despite actual assistance format that provided only template materials according to consulting fraud concealment and student application deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false personalization records and assistance documentation while coordinating template usage with custom billing protocols to maximize assistance efficiency while concealing actual assistance personalization and essay customization that would affect student application success and college admission based on honest consulting practices and personalized assistance delivery. The consultant had also been manipulating consulting procedures and assistance verification processes to maintain template fraud while avoiding consulting oversight and application monitoring that would reveal assistance manipulation and personalization violations that violated student protection and college consulting integrity standards. The template essay fraud was discovered when colleges investigated application similarity and discovered template usage evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive consulting fraud and assistance manipulation that violated college consulting regulations and application assistance standards. Our 24th story comes from students who discovered their tutoring company was charging for science tutoring while using outdated textbooks and materials, billing for current science instruction and modern educational resources while providing instruction from obsolete textbooks and outdated scientific information despite tutoring agreements and material procedures that guaranteed current science education and up-to-date instructional materials according to science tutoring standards and educational currency requirements. The outdated materials operation involved targeted instruction fraud and currency manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate tutoring services to avoid immediate detection by tutoring oversight and science monitoring that relied on honest science instruction and current materials for student protection and science tutoring integrity. The company had been particularly focused on billing for science tutoring and educational support while ensuring that material fraud would be concealed through false currency documentation and manipulated material records that would justify current billing despite actual materials condition that provided outdated science information according to tutoring fraud concealment and student science deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false material currency records and instruction documentation while coordinating outdated materials with science billing protocols to minimize material costs while concealing actual material currency and science accuracy that would affect student science learning and educational effectiveness based on honest tutoring practices and current science instruction delivery. The company had also been manipulating tutoring procedures and material verification processes to maintain currency fraud while avoiding tutoring oversight and science monitoring that would reveal material manipulation and science violations that violated student protection and science tutoring integrity standards. The outdated materials fraud was discovered when students investigated science accuracy and discovered material obsolescence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive tutoring fraud and science manipulation that violated science tutoring regulations and educational currency standards. Our 25th story comes from students who discovered their private school was billing for athletic programs while providing substandard coaching and facilities, charging for competitive sports programs and quality athletic instruction while offering inadequate coaching and poor facility conditions despite athletic agreements and program procedures that guaranteed quality coaching and adequate athletic facilities according to athletic program standards and sports education requirements. The substandard athletic operation involved targeted program fraud and coaching manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational services to avoid immediate detection by athletic oversight and program monitoring that relied on honest coaching provision and adequate facilities for student protection and athletic program integrity. The school had been particularly focused on billing for expensive athletic programs and sports instruction while ensuring that program fraud would be concealed through false coaching documentation and manipulated facility records that would justify athletic billing despite actual program quality that provided substandard athletic education according to educational fraud concealment and student athletic deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false coaching qualification records and facility documentation while coordinating substandard programs with athletic billing protocols to minimize program costs while concealing actual coaching quality and facility adequacy that would affect student athletic development and sports participation based on honest educational practices and quality athletic program delivery. The school had also been manipulating athletic procedures and program verification processes to maintain coaching fraud while avoiding athletic oversight and program monitoring that would reveal coaching manipulation and athletic violations that violated student protection and athletic program integrity standards. The substandard athletic fraud was discovered when parents investigated program quality and discovered coaching deficiency evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and athletic manipulation that violated athletic program regulations and sports education standards. Our 26th story comes from students who discovered their educational service was charging for learning disability assessments while lacking qualified evaluators, billing for professional disability evaluation and educational assessment while using unqualified staff and inadequate testing procedures despite assessment agreements and evaluation procedures that guaranteed qualified assessment and professional disability evaluation according to special education standards and disability assessment requirements. The unqualified assessment operation involved targeted evaluation fraud and qualification manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational services to avoid immediate detection by assessment oversight and evaluation monitoring that relied on honest disability assessment and qualified evaluators for student protection and educational assessment integrity. The service had been particularly focused on billing for expensive disability assessments and educational evaluation while ensuring that assessment fraud would be concealed through false qualification documentation and manipulated evaluation records that would justify professional billing despite actual evaluator qualifications that lacked assessment expertise according to educational fraud concealment and student assessment deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false evaluator qualification records and assessment documentation while coordinating unqualified evaluation with professional billing protocols to maximize assessment revenue while concealing actual evaluator qualifications and assessment validity that would affect student disability identification and educational support based on honest assessment practices and qualified evaluation delivery. The service had also been manipulating assessment procedures and evaluation verification processes to maintain qualification fraud while avoiding assessment oversight and evaluation monitoring that would reveal assessment manipulation and qualification violations that violated student protection and educational assessment integrity standards. The unqualified assessment fraud was discovered when families investigated evaluation validity and discovered qualification absence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and assessment manipulation that violated special education regulations and disability assessment standards. Our 27th story comes from students who discovered their tutoring center was billing for reading specialists while using untrained volunteer instructors, charging for expert reading instruction and literacy specialists while providing tutoring from volunteers without reading education or literacy training despite tutoring agreements and specialization procedures that guaranteed expert reading instruction and qualified literacy specialists according to reading tutoring standards and literacy education requirements. The untrained volunteer operation involved targeted specialization fraud and expertise manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate tutoring services to avoid immediate detection by tutoring oversight and reading monitoring that relied on honest reading expertise and qualified instruction for student protection and reading tutoring integrity. The center had been particularly focused on billing for expensive reading specialist rates and literacy instruction while ensuring that expertise fraud would be concealed through false qualification documentation and manipulated instructor records that would justify specialist billing despite actual instructor qualifications that lacked reading expertise according to tutoring fraud concealment and student reading deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false reading qualification records and expertise documentation while coordinating volunteer instructors with specialist billing protocols to minimize instructor costs while concealing actual reading qualifications and literacy expertise that would affect student reading development and instruction quality based on honest tutoring practices and qualified reading instruction delivery. The center had also been manipulating tutoring procedures and reading verification processes to maintain expertise fraud while avoiding tutoring oversight and reading monitoring that would reveal instructor manipulation and reading violations that violated student protection and reading tutoring integrity standards. The untrained volunteer fraud was discovered when parents investigated instructor qualifications and discovered reading expertise absence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive tutoring fraud and reading manipulation that violated reading tutoring regulations and literacy education standards. Our 28th story comes from students who discovered their private academy was charging for honors programs while offering standard difficulty coursework, billing for advanced academic programs and accelerated learning, while providing regular curriculum and standard difficulty instruction despite honors agreements and program procedures that guaranteed advanced coursework and accelerated academic challenges according to honors program standards and advanced education requirements. The standard coursework operation involved targeted program fraud and academic manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational services to avoid immediate detection by academic oversight and honors monitoring that relied on honest advanced instruction and accelerated coursework for student protection and honors program integrity. The Academy had been particularly focused on billing for expensive honors programs and advanced education while ensuring that program fraud would be concealed through false academic documentation and manipulated coursework records that would justify honors billing despite actual instruction level that provided only standard coursework according to educational fraud concealment and student academic deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false honors program records and academic documentation while coordinating standard instruction with honors billing protocols to minimize program complexity while concealing actual instruction level and academic challenge that would affect student academic development and honors education based on honest educational practices and advanced coursework delivery. The Academy had also been manipulating academic procedures and honors verification processes to maintain program fraud while avoiding academic oversight and honors monitoring that would reveal coursework manipulation and program violations that violated student protection and honors program integrity standards. The standard coursework fraud was discovered when students investigated academic challenge and discovered coursework standardization evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and academic manipulation that violated honors program regulations and advanced education standards. Our 29th story comes from parents who discovered their educational company was billing for parent communication while providing minimal progress updates, charging for comprehensive parent engagement and regular communication while offering infrequent updates and limited progress information despite communication agreements and engagement procedures that guaranteed regular parent communication and comprehensive progress reporting according to parent engagement standards and educational communication requirements. The minimal communication operation involved targeted engagement fraud and communication manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational services to avoid immediate detection by engagement oversight and communication monitoring that relied on honest parent communication and comprehensive updates for family protection and educational engagement integrity. The company had been particularly focused on billing for parent engagement services and communication programs while ensuring that communication fraud would be concealed through false engagement documentation and manipulated communication records that would justify engagement billing despite actual communication frequency that provided minimal parent involvement according to educational fraud concealment and parent engagement deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false communication records and engagement documentation while coordinating minimal updates with engagement billing protocols to minimize communication effort while concealing actual communication frequency and parent involvement that would affect family engagement and educational partnership based on honest educational practices and comprehensive communication delivery. The company had also been manipulating communication procedures and engagement verification processes to maintain communication fraud while avoiding engagement oversight and communication monitoring that would reveal communication manipulation and engagement violations that violated parent protection and educational engagement integrity standards. The minimal communication fraud was discovered when parents investigated engagement frequency and discovered communication limitation evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and communication manipulation that violated parent engagement regulations and educational communication standards. Our 30th story comes from students who discovered their tutoring service was charging for exam preparation while using practice tests from previous decades, billing for current test preparation and updated exam materials while providing outdated practice tests and obsolete exam formats despite preparation agreements and material procedures that guaranteed current test preparation and up-to-date exam materials according to test preparation standards and exam currency requirements. The outdated exam operation involved targeted preparation fraud and material manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate tutoring services to avoid immediate detection by preparation oversight and exam monitoring that relied on honest test preparation and current materials for student protection and test preparation integrity. The service had been particularly focused on billing for exam preparation and test improvement while ensuring that material fraud would be concealed through false currency documentation and manipulated preparation records that would justify current billing despite actual materials condition that provided outdated exam information according to tutoring fraud concealment and student preparation deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false material currency records and preparation documentation while coordinating outdated tests with preparation billing protocols to minimize material costs while concealing actual material currency and exam relevance that would affect student test performance and preparation effectiveness based on honest tutoring practices and current exam preparation delivery. The service had also been manipulating preparation procedures and material verification processes to maintain currency fraud while avoiding preparation oversight and exam monitoring that would reveal material manipulation and preparation violations that violated student protection and test preparation integrity standards. The outdated exam fraud was discovered when students investigated test accuracy and discovered material obsolescence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive tutoring fraud and preparation manipulation that violated test preparation regulations and exam currency standards. Our 31st story comes from students who discovered their private school was billing for nutritious meal programs while serving processed and unhealthy food, charging for healthy nutrition and balanced meal programs while providing fast food and processed meals that violated nutritional standards despite nutrition agreements and meal procedures that guaranteed healthy nutrition and balanced meal programs according to school nutrition standards and dietary health requirements. The unhealthy meal operation involved targeted nutrition fraud and food manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate educational services to avoid immediate detection by nutrition oversight and meal monitoring that relied on honest nutrition provision and healthy meals for student protection and school nutrition integrity. The school had been particularly focused on billing for nutrition programs and healthy meals while ensuring that nutrition fraud would be concealed through false meal documentation and manipulated nutrition records that would justify nutrition billing despite actual food quality that provided unhealthy meals according to educational fraud concealment and student nutrition deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false nutrition records and meal documentation while coordinating processed food with nutrition billing protocols to minimize food costs while concealing actual meal quality and nutritional value that would affect student health and dietary education based on honest educational practices and healthy nutrition delivery. The school had also been manipulating nutrition procedures and meal verification processes to maintain food fraud while avoiding nutrition oversight and meal monitoring that would reveal food manipulation and nutrition violations that violated student protection and school nutrition integrity standards. The unhealthy meal fraud was discovered when parents investigated meal quality and discovered nutrition deficiency evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive educational fraud and nutrition manipulation that violated school nutrition regulations and dietary health standards. Our 32nd story comes from graduate school applicants who discovered their educational consultant was charging for graduate school guidance while lacking advanced degree experience, billing for expert graduate school advice and advanced education consulting while providing guidance from consultants without graduate education or advanced degree experience despite consulting agreements and expertise procedures that guaranteed expert Graduate guidance and advanced education expertise. According to graduate consulting standards and advanced education requirements, the inexperienced guidance operation involved targeted expertise, fraud, and qualification manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate consulting services to avoid immediate detection by consulting oversight and expertise monitoring that relied on honest graduate expertise and advanced education knowledge for student protection and graduate consulting integrity. The consultant had been particularly focused on billing for expensive graduate school consulting and advanced education guidance while ensuring that expertise fraud would be concealed through false qualification documentation and manipulated experience records that would justify expert billing despite actual consultant background that lacked graduate education according to consulting fraud concealment and student guidance deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false graduate experience records and expertise documentation while coordinating inexperienced guidance with expert billing protocols to maximize consulting revenue while concealing actual consultant qualifications and graduate expertise that would affect student graduate preparation and application success based on honest consulting practices and qualified graduate guidance delivery. The consultant had also been manipulating consulting procedures and expertise verification processes to maintain qualification fraud, while avoiding consulting oversight and expertise monitoring that would reveal guidance manipulation and qualification violations that violated student protection and graduate consulting integrity standards. The inexperienced guidance fraud was discovered when students investigated consultant qualifications and discovered graduate experience absence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive consulting fraud and expertise manipulation that violated graduate consulting regulations and advanced education standards. Our 33rd story comes from students who discovered their tutoring company was billing for flexible scheduling while maintaining rigid and inconvenient time slots, charging for accommodating schedules and convenient tutoring times while offering inflexible scheduling and limited time availability despite scheduling agreements and flexibility procedures that guaranteed accommodating schedules and convenient tutoring access according to tutoring service standards and scheduling flexibility requirements. The inflexible scheduling operation involved targeted scheduling fraud and flexibility manipulation while maintaining enough legitimate tutoring services to avoid immediate detection by scheduling oversight and flexibility monitoring that relied on honest scheduling accommodation and convenient access for student protection and tutoring service integrity. The company had been particularly focused on billing for flexible scheduling services and accommodating tutoring while ensuring that scheduling fraud would be concealed through false flexibility documentation and manipulated scheduling records that would justify flexibility billing despite actual scheduling policies that provided rigid time slots according to tutoring fraud concealment and student scheduling deception techniques. The scheme extended to creating false scheduling flexibility records and accommodation documentation while coordinating rigid scheduling with flexibility billing protocols to minimize scheduling complexity while concealing actual scheduling policies and time availability that would affect student tutoring access and learning convenience based on honest tutoring practices and flexible scheduling delivery. The company had also been manipulating scheduling procedures and flexibility verification processes to maintain scheduling fraud while avoiding scheduling oversight and flexibility monitoring that would reveal scheduling manipulation and flexibility violations that violated student protection and tutoring service integrity standards. The inflexible scheduling fraud was discovered when students investigated scheduling options and discovered flexibility absence evidence, leading to evidence that revealed comprehensive tutoring fraud and scheduling manipulation that violated tutoring service regulations and scheduling flexibility standards. As we conclude tonight's journey through these 33 education industry fraud stories, we're reminded that learning and academic development, despite being essential for personal growth and career success, can sometimes harbor individuals who exploit trust and manipulate educational services. These tales from Reddit show us the importance of researching educational credentials thoroughly, verifying accreditation status, and investigating instructor qualifications. Whether you're choosing tutoring services, selecting private schools, or hiring educational consultants, these stories serve as valuable reminders about protecting yourself from academic deception. Thank you for joining me tonight on Drowsy Tales Daily, and may these stories guide you into peaceful sleep with renewed awareness of education industry pitfalls. Sweet dreams. And I'll see you tomorrow night for another collection of fascinating Reddit stories designed to help you drift off to sleep. Until then, sleep well and dream of honest educators and trustworthy learning institutions.